Welcome back to some more Total War Warhammer 2 with me, Mars. Another couple of ladder battles for you today. This time we're going to be using the Empire. Again, as we continue to battle our ladder anxiety, get online and have a nice, fun couple of battles. Today we're going to be using this guy, Boris Todbringer. And let's be honest, who wouldn't want to go to war with a big gold castle on your head? And blue and white flowers. Feathers. I assume this is like the footballers with the bright coloured boots. You've got to be good to pull that off, right? Anyway, let's get on with the battles. Alright, so game one against Help on the Ash Plains. I have to say, I don't particularly like this map in multiplayer. I think it's a little bit unbalanced. I'll show you why once we get in. So I'm going to put it on pause because it kicks off pretty quickly, and then we'll just have a quick look at the two army builds. So this is what I've gone with. I've got two swordsmen, one on either side of my main line. These are kind of just to tie down some spears, hopefully. Inside those, I have two flagellants, and then in the middle, I've got a greatsword. This is kind of like a sacrificial greatsword. I'm expecting artillery from my opponent, and I'm expecting them to target something. So I'm guessing they're going to target that, and I'm going to try and keep everything else relatively far away from that, so minimise kind of collateral damage. Backing up the main line is two greatswords, one on either flank, and then I have three handgunners, so two normal handgunners and the silver bullet handgunners. These are the Regiment of Renown. My forces are led by Boris Todbringer. He is on foot, and I have a bright wizard for my magic. Finally, on this group, I just have a kind of reserve spearman on the back here. Then onto my right flank, I've deployed two Knights of the Blazing Sun, and I'm backing them up with a spearman unit. So let's have a quick look at my opponent's build. And this is what I'm talking about this map. I mean, you kind of on this side, if you deploy on this side, you are sort of on a plateau and you're up high, and it's all nice. And I think if you had a rush army, you could probably get up to this ridge line and take the ridge line, and you're going to be forcing your opponent to have a tough uphill battle, really, to get through. And I think if you deploy down here, you're at such a disadvantage as well. So yeah, I think this map can be a little bit one-sided if you fully take advantage of it. So my opponent's build here, he has three of these Skaven slave fodder units, and then clan rat spears, one on either flank. He's backing those up in the middle by two plague monks. He's a kind of anti-infantry unit. He has two rat ogres hiding here. These are very good armor piercing units. Two death runners, one on either of his flanks, and then he's taken the obligatory warp lightning cannon and plague claw catapult. I don't even think this is a very good map for artillery, but Skavens almost always take these two. They are very good. Warp lightning cannon especially. I think if you're building a Skaven army, the first thing you do is take a warp lightning cannon. Then as soon as you get into game, you click warp lightning cannon, right click enemy hero, and just go about your day. And let it wail away until the enemy hero dies. That's one of the reasons I've got Boris on foot, because it's much harder to target with this. It's also incredibly good against cavalry. He's protecting that with some clan rat spears, and then he's got a doom wheel out here, and he's being led by the Greyseer, which I don't see very often, and he's backing the Greyseer up by a heavy hitting assassin who is a very good melee specialist. So that is my opponent's build, and like I say, I have deployed on this right flank to try and negate some of this hill I have to climb up, and I think my two sort of saving graces here is the fact that they do have this ridge line, which means it's a bit difficult to fire into, and also this clump of trees here, which gives me a little bit of cover. Let's press play, get on with the battle. So as soon as I get in, I do see that he's got a warp lining cannon, and I'm immediately going to put my two cavalry units into the forest to hide them. because they are going to get targeted, and you can see Warp Lightning is already coming in. It does miss that time, thankfully, but I'm going to hide them in there until my enemy forgets about them, gets bored, or targets something else, and then I'm going to bring them back out a little bit later once they're not getting targeted quite so much by that Warp Lightning Cannon. So I'm going to push straight up through the front, and you can see Warp Lightning Cannon has lost its target, and now it's just targeting Boris instead. So cavalry first, then Lord, and just keep it firing. Yeah, such is the life of a Warp Lightning Cannon. It's pretty standard practice, and I assume my opponent thought I was probably going to bring Boris on maybe his Imperial Griffin, or up in the air, or a horse or something, which makes him a very, very easy target. But on foot, you can see he's a much harder target, and the Warp Lightning Cannon is going to fire at them. But it's not going to do huge amounts of damage while Boris is moving. It's worth keeping him moving. You can see he's just missing. He does clip him in a minute, but you do relatively little damage. So I'm going to start moving my cavalry up now. I'm going to push one cavalry around this way, and I'm going to try and get round the flank. But I can see my opponent is not asleep, and he is pulling out some rat ogres. So I'm just going to duck back in again. Main line is going to engage into the opponent's main line, and I'm going to move my second cavalry out, and I'm going to make sure that I'm tying up this doom wheel as soon as it tries to engage. Handgunners are engaging, and they're going straight for the Plague Monks, these anti-infantry, and they're doing some really nice damage. And then I'm going to use my Bright Wizard here as well, and I'm going to get a nice Burning Skull across this other Plague Monk. I'm going to do a lot of damage to them and the Clan Rat Spears, and I don't really care about the Clan Rat Spears, but doing that damage to the Plague Monk is pretty good. And you can see miss micro of Boris a little bit. I'm trying to move him, but every time I keep him still, the Warp Lightning Cannon does hit him, and it does do a lot of damage. So I'm pushing my Knights of the Blazing Sun up to my left flank, and I'm going to engage the Doom Wheel, get a bit of mass in there, and try and tie him down. You can see I am starting to tie him down. Now, it's worth noting that Knights of the Blazing Sun seem to lose on a one-on-one to a Doom Wheel, so it's important to back them up with something else, whether that's spears or swordsmen. I'm backing them up with these handgunners, and I cast Flaming Sword of Ruin on them to give them some extra power, and you can see that they absolutely destroy that Doom Wheel. I'm going to try and intercept it with some spears, but it doesn't matter because the Doom Wheel's just going to break anyway, and away he goes. So I have Gaze the front line, and you can see my front line is doing incredibly well against his front line, and they're just breaking through pretty much everywhere. Handgunners are doing a really good job, but I am trying to move Boris out. He has got Trophy Head on him, so I'm just going to try and keep him out of the fight for a minute while that wears off, and try and dodge some of that Warp Lightning, which is still giving him pain, even though he's on foot. I have got my cavalry up into the enemy artillery here, and they're not going to do great because they've got rat ogres on them, but I don't care. I'm going to take that artillery offline, which I'm happy with. Now the Grey Seer has come down. He is trying to get into my handgunners, but my handgunners are going to do fine as long as I keep them kind of separated. I can keep firing on him while he engages one. But the more of a problem is Boris over here. I assume that my opponent feels that his only way of winning is to kill Boris, so that's what he's attempting to do. So I'm trying to free him up. I think he will come back, but I just need to give him a little bit of space. So I'm using my Knights of the Blazing Sun to try and tie up enemy forces, and I'm going to bring over a Great Sword as well, just to try and give Boris a little bit of space and see if I can get him to stop routing and come back. My opponent is using all sorts of magic on these handgunners, seeing that they're the real threat, but just the Grey Seer over there, he's not going to do too well. Is a major pushover for Boris to try and rout him off. He is routing. I need to give him space, so my Knights of Blazing Sun come over. They charge straight into the Skaven slaves here, who are going to rout almost immediately. And as soon as they rout, and there's some nice friendly troops near, Boris is going to come back again, which is absolutely fine. I have pulled a lot of my infantry back. I didn't want them to overextend, but I have finished off the Warp Lightning Cannon and the Plague Catapult. These Rat Ogres are going down, so I just need to regroup some of my units and to make sure that I don't overextend too much. I think this is probably in the bag by now anyway. Just want to make sure Boris lives, so I'm going to push him down this way, and I'm going to make sure that my Knights of the Blazing Sun, Great Swords and Spears are going to tie up these units, and Trophy Head gets popped on him again, but as long as I can get him out of combat, and here he comes, and I can tie the enemy up with Knights of the Blazing Sun, then I think he's going to live, and away he goes. More spells coming down on the handgunners. It's basically too late. The Grey Seer goes down. Combination of my swordsman, greatsword, and the Bright Wizard. Boris has slipped past and is absolutely fine. He's having a merry little dance, and the enemy is routing. So that's all there was for this game. The army losses are going to catch up, and that is all. All right. So let's have a little look at the final results here. And you can see from my opponent, really, if you have a look at like the warp lightning cannon, the doom wheel, and the plague catapult, which is three of kind of his main sort of damage dealing units, they managed to keep them really quiet. I mean, these between them it's like over 3,000 goals. So it's like a quarter of your total army spend, and you've got under 100 kills between them. So I think it's telling that they were quiet, and I won the game. And I think if Doom Wheel and Warp Lightning Cannon and Plague Catapult have a good game, then you pretty much lose against the Skaven. Rat Ogres and Death Runners didn't do too badly, and these Plague Monks, considering what a beating they got from, I'm not sure if this is the one that was targeted by handgunners or the ones that got targeted by the Bright Wizard, but considering they still got 76 kills, even though they were hit really hard, shows you what a good unit these can be. From my point of view, Boris was pretty much sitting on his laurels by the looks of it for the entire game. He was too busy dancing left and right of the warp lining cannon, but he'd done his job. He stayed alive, and his debuffs for the enemy do come into play, even if he's not, directly in combat. So he's a nice lord. Bright Wizard done well with his spells, 101 kills, which is nice. One of these great swords held up nicely, so did the Flagellants, and the Knights of the Blazing Sun just, really good kills as expected. So that's it for game one. On to game two. All right, game two against David W on the Ash Plains. This time we're going to be against the Warriors of Chaos, and I was expecting just a large unit spam, because it's kind of what I've seen a lot on ladder. It's just lots and lots of large units, but my opponent here came with something a little bit different, which is kind of nice. Let's pop this on pause so we can have a very quick look at the unit rosters. So I've gone with 3 units of Flagellants across my front line. These are unbreakable units, just to hold my front line. 2 gunpowder units in the form of Sterling's Revenge Free Company Militia and the Silver Bullets handgunners. And I'm backing those up with 3 great swords right behind them. In the rear, I've got 3 spearmen here, plenty of anti-large, and they're basically there to either reinforce the front line or to fend off cavalry from the sides and rear. I've leading them today with Boris. This time he is on a horse, and I've brought a light wizard with Net of Amantark and phase protection. On my left flank, I've got the Royal Outdoor Griffites, Demigryph Knights hidden in the forest, and then on my right flank, I've got a unit of Reichsguard also hidden in the forest. So for my opponent, he has taken 3 Marauding Horsemen with throwing axes and 1 standard Marauding Horseman. And then in the rear, he's taken a Hell Cannon situated on a hill. And then his infantry line is 4 Chaos Marauders, and they're backed up by more elite infantry in the form of these Chaos Auras with great weapons, and the Chosen with great weapons, which this in particular is a really nice unit. He's brought a Dragon Ogre Shoggoth as a personal bodyguard for Kolek Suneater. Both those are large units, and they could possibly do a lot of damage. And then for his magic, he's brought a Chaos Sorcerer of Death. But the only spell he's brought is Spirit Leech. And you do see this a little bit online, where the kind of aim of this is to basically just target my leadership, in this case Boris, and just Spirit Leech him over and over and over and over again until he finally dies. A bit of Lord sniping, and not something I particularly agree with, but it can be a viable option in the game, but you just need to spot it and then play around it. So I can see my opponent's plan here is to make me traverse long distances while under fire from his skirmishing units and his hell cannon, and then by the time I get up to his front line, I shouldn't be in any kind of position to fight. So I'm going to try and negate that plan as much as possible. Let's press play. So I can see the Marauding Horseman coming in. I think I'm going to get a nice net onto both of them, but he is smart enough to split them up, which gives me a little bit of a decision to make. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to net off the left one and ambush them with the Demigryph Knights, and then I'm going to get as many shots into the right one from my gunpowder units as I can. So you can see me pushing over my light wizard to the left flank, get a nice net on these horsemen, and I'm going to spring the trap, and the Royal Demigryph Knights are going to go straight in. I did think he was going to charge my front line, so I did pull back for a second, but as soon as I see that he is skirmishing, I'm going to turn around and get some really nice volleys of fire into these units. And you can see that I've taken very little damage from his skirmishing, and actually the gunpowder units are doing large amounts of damage, so really nice being able to fend those off. You see my left flank, my Demigryph Knights absolutely destroyed these Marauding Horsemen, who are now going to rout straight off the field, and he is going to push another Marauding Horseman over to try and save them, but that's probably not going to be the best plan. I see that he's trying to get another Marauding Horseman around, or I assume he's into the rear. But what he doesn't realise is I do have the Rights Guard here in another ambush, and although they're slower, I get a really nice charge because he doesn't realise they're in the forest, and you can see the damage they cause. Absolutely crush them. They're going to wave a break, and they're going to rout straight off the field as well. Catch the last of the throwing axes Marauding Horsemen over here with my Demigryph Knights, who are going to make an absolute mess of them. I thought I was going to pick them up for free as well, but they are bringing over Dragon Ogre and Kolek Sun Eater, and that's going to basically save his company. So I am going to pull back so I don't overextend and see if I can bring these units with me. Standard Marauding Horseman over here. I think he's forgotten about them because I'm just getting great fire from my silver bullets handgunners into them, which are going to absolutely wreck them, and I'm going to get a free charge with my Rights Guard, which are going to finish them off as well. You can see my opponent does take the bait, and he comes in, and I'm going to get another nice net off. And as soon as I net, I'm going to hit them with gunpowder units, and I'm going to bring in some great swords and some anti-large spears to help destroy these or get as much damage on them as I can. I do make a little bit of a mistake here, or I don't know if it's a micro mistake, probably a knowledge mistake really. I send in my Demigryph Knights as they are anti-large. I thought they would do okay, but actually they get crushed by the Dragon Ogres. So it's a bit of a mistake there. They took way more damage than they needed to, and a bit of a waste of a very expensive unit, but something I'll learn for the future. My supporting units do all get into play here. So I've got Spearman, I've got Boris up here as well, and you can see the damage that Kolek's taking. He's taking a load of damage, and I'm going to see that he's going to turn and run, and I'm going to get some really nice fire as he goes as well. So he's down to about 50 HP from that engagement, which I'm really happy about. I do spot his Chaos Sorcerer of Death over here, and I think I might get another free pick. So I'm going to send in the Rights Guard, just see if I can pick up that Chaos Sorcerer of Death for free. Now you can see the Hell Cannon is in range and firing, so that is going to be my cue to move up through the forest and engage his front line. I think he is manually targeting this Hell Cannon by the looks of it, because it gets in some really nice shots. So I assume he's manually targeting it and putting it exactly where he wants to, because I rarely see a Hell Cannon this accurate. So it's really nice play from my opponent there. He starts to rack up the kills very quickly. I think it's like 2 shots. He's up to 21 kills. Very nice. So you can see the Chaos Sorcerer is in real trouble here. He is taking a lot of damage, and he casts Spirit Leech onto my Rights Guard, which is a bit of a waste. That spell is not really good against multi-model units. It's better against kind of single targets, and I bet he's wishing he didn't bring just Spirit Leech now. Something like Fate Abuna would have been handy. But I do see he is targeting me with both the Hell Cannon, and he's bringing over Kolek and his wife. So I'm just going to disengage there while I push my infantry up and form a new front line here. So I'm going to try and get everything into play. Going to reform, bring up everything from my rear, and then I'm going to make a push onto his infantry line. He is still targeting me with his hell cannon, and here comes another shot, bang on target, and again I'm sure that it's just manually targeted and really nice work. So you can see my units are all getting into position. I'm going to bring up my gunpowder units, and I'm going to start working on this. But I'm not quite sure why he pulled right across the front line like this, especially as he knows I've got a light wizard. But it's going to give me a very nice opportunity to get another net down, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to net these three, and then I'm going to aim to execute the Chaos Sorcerer with my Sterling's Revenge. So net comes down, take aim, and the first volley comes in, and so much damage, just amazing amounts of damage. I'm bringing up my handgunners as well. But I don't think I'm going to need them. This Chaos Sorcerer breaks and then shatters, and he's going to shatter straight off the pitch. And it's always nice when your opponent brings a Chaos Sorcerer with just Spirit Leech, that they manage to do nothing with them. It got off one Spirit Leech onto the Rights Guard, and then it just shatters straight off the field. So really happy about that, and it just means I'm not going to suffer Spirit Leech kind of spam. So I'm starting to engage the front line now, tying up his troops, and I'm going to get these cavalry Rights Guard in through the back, and I'm going to try and take his Hellcan offline. It's already up to 128 kills, so he's still doing some really nice work. Gunpowder unit's going to continue to battle Kolek. He's down 50 HP and he's worried about getting into prolonged fight now as well. I've got Boris on station here, although Boris does take some nasty hits. But as long as I can keep him tied up and keep firing, then that is my goal. And I'm going to aim to tie down his infantry blobs here, here and here, while I destroy his large units and take his artillery offline. Out on my right flank, the Demigryph Knights are very low health, but they are being chased by some Chaos Marauders, so I'm just going to kite him, and if they want to chase my Demigryph Knights, then he can do that all day long as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to pull Boris back because he's taking quite a few hits. Let him regenerate a little bit. Keep pressure up on Kolek. And you can see the back line. I have got into this Hell Cannon now. And my right skull are going to do very, very well. And they have finally taken it offline. Although it has got 174 kills. So really done incredibly well. And nice use from my opponent. I'm going to do another micro mistake here, and I'm going to push this Rights Guard into the back of this formation, which looked like a really nice charge, but my opponent's not sleeping, and he countercharges with the Chaos Marauders, at which point I should have just pulled out and around or cycled around the back, but I don't. I take the engagement and I stay there and I get recharged by the Chaos Warriors with great weapons, and that's pretty much going to destroy my Rights Guard. So it's a shame. It's another powerful unit that I just mismicroed a little bit. You can see Kolek over here is getting an absolute pasting. He's going to bring over his other Dragon Ogre Shagoff to try and save him. And I guess he does to a certain extent because he does manage to get out just about, but very low. Very low health. 666 health remaining. Okay. So he's going to run, and I'm going to try and chase with Boris, but think better of it with this Dragon over here. I'm going to turn around and come back in and try and make a mess of that Dragon over instead. So my plan now is simple. I'm just going to tie up this infantry here, his elite infantry, with my infantry, while I work on finishing off this battle here, and then I'm going to pull over my leadership and hope to finish off that battle as well. So you can see I'm pulling out my gunpowder units either side and then turning them round and shooting the Dragon Ogre. And I've got a 2 spearmen, one on either side of him. Boris is in there and the last of my Demigryph Knights is in there. So ton of anti-large. And this Chaos Marauder, I'm just tying up with the great swords that are going to do very well and just stop them getting to any of my handgunners. So that Dragon Ogre is not long for this world. He is broken and he's going to make a run for it. Kolek is out here. He did stop routing, but he's going to be pretty much ineffective now, which is nice. And you can see I've cast phase protection over here just to make these tankier and stay in the fight as long as I can until I can get Boris especially over here to help on that fight. Last of my micro mistakes here, I sent the Royal out of Griff fights over, but I didn't realise they weren't quite as fast as the Dragon Ogre. Dragon Ogre does stop routing, turns round and just smashes the Demigryph Knights. It's going to be the end of them, really, which is a shame. I didn't quite realise that they weren't fast enough to keep up, but there we go. So I think my opponent at this point realizes that his only hope is to kill Boris. So he's going to push over his Dragon Ogre right over here, and he's going to attempt to get into my backline. Specifically, it looks like to hit Boris. But he's being chased by Spearmen. He's going to take some shots by Sterling's Revenge. He's very low health. He's already wavering, and to be honest, he's just not got enough damage left in him to do anything. So he does get into my back line. He does look like he finishes off one of my flagellants there, but I don't think he even gets a hit on Boris before he starts to waver and then starts to rout off the field. So lastly, I'm just going to envelop these infantry here. I've got Boris on station. I've got my light wizard close by, and I'm going to push up these silver bullets with some spearmen support, and I'm just going to finish off Kolek as well. So that's it, just the last mopping up operation now. It's nice to use the Empire. I have to say the Empire are not what they were in Warhammer 1. They have got a lot of nerfs, and I don't think they're a top tier faction anymore. But it is nice to still use them, and they can still be used, especially against kind of Warhammer 1 factions. I don't think they fare quite so well against, the likes of Dark Elves and Lizardmen and things like that. They can still be used, but I still enjoy playing with them and having some fun. So that's it for that battle. Having a quick look at the end stats here, you can see the Hell Cannon did incredibly well with 174 kills, and these Chosen with great weapons, 214 kills. Really, really nice unit, and put the hurt down. So just keeping these tied up until they simply break at the end was a nice plan. Very telling, 3 marauding horsemen with throwing axes and 1 standard marauding horseman here, all of which were completely destroyed for under 10 kills, so it's quite a lot of money's worth gone for very little return, which is nice. Dragon Ogre with 60 kills and 51 kept Kolek pretty quiet because he took so much pain at the beginning. No outstanding units on my side, but everyone done their job. Anti-large spearmen done their job. Flagellants holding the line. Great swords were there when I needed them, and the gunpowder units just kept on wailing away at the enemy heavy units, which was really nice. Missed micro from my 2 cavalry units here. After such a good start as well with their ambushes, but I just mismicroed them kind of from there on in. So something I need to work on is kind of cavalry micro. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed. I had fun. Thank you to my opponents, and we'll see you next time.